We're recording now. We are all tired, right? I mean, I feel like we're all tired and grumpy, so we might get into fights today. And Laura has a triangle. So Laura, the other day you asked me a question about what was on my cabinet or my dresser.
Yeah.
So can you repeat what it is that you were asking me and what you thought those things were?
I will do no such thing. I asked you what was in the plastic bin on the top shelf of your very unorganized shelving unit.
Right, but what was your assumption? I think it's important. This is a public interest. What was your assumption?
Sex toys?
Yes.
Well, there was that.
Laura thought.
So there was that CNN interview with the woman in the back of the dildo on the shelf. So I mean, not outside the realm of possibility.
Wow, we just started.
This episode is PG-13, everybody.
Wow.
That was
okay.
A PG-13 CNN interview, and that's saying something.
On that note, I guess we can start with the. God, this is a terrible segue because I feel it's really not okay. So this is really not okay. Right, so guys, we're gonna start with the book.
The
book
totally perfect.
The book that came up at the last BOE meeting. I think the name of the book was Ejaculate Responsibly. And
all here. I just want to vote who ejaculates responsibly. Raise your hand. Shauna, Laura, anybody?
All right, guys, can we try? Like this is like a weird, like the you know.
We should have been doing this at night.
Yeah, because I feel like I don't know, maybe I'll get arrested. I don't know what's gonna happen here. So let's so the book's about ejaculation. So the proponents of let's talk about the meeting itself. I guess there's a bunch of things there's a lot of feelings and thoughts about sort of how that book was that the process, the vote, the book itself, let's just kind of go roundtable on this.
So I wanted to talk about not the book or the subject matter, but like this whole, like how everything happened. So I went back and I rewatched the meeting. And so here's some points that I kind of was confused by. So Mrs. Leahy got up and said the donation of books. So these are all donated. We found out subsequently a couple of the people who had done, offered some of the donation, either money or books themselves. Anyway, the donation was submitted in time to be included on the agenda, but wasn't. So that right there sounds like maybe because our business administrator does the agenda, maybe it was an oversight on her part. We don't know. Ms. Leahy said the Berkeley Heights Education Foundation didn't support the book, but there was no evidence of that in the meeting. And then subsequently, BHEF denied that they weren't supportive of the book. So there was that going on. And then the first student who spoke, and this is where it gets really like, what the hell to me. She did say the book was chosen by Mrs. Leahy, but she said, quote, Mr. Hopkins offered us, as he put it, a voice in our community and directed us to Ms. Leahy's idea for a lit lunch on the book. So that kind of, Mr. Hopkins offered us a voice. So is Mr. Hopkins approaching these students and saying, hey, here's something I think you should look into? Like, I was really confused by how it all started and where this came from. And that to me was of way more interest than whatever the book said.
So when you think about that from your perspective, Shauna, are there, not that you have any, just kind of what are some conclusions that come to your mind about that?
It sounded like this is being, even though Ms. Leahy said the lit lunches are student driven, it sounds to me like someone in the administration is approaching the students with this. And I would really like to see it be more of an organic thing. The students are going to the administration and saying, here's what we want to do, rather than the administration saying, oh, here's something that we think would give you a voice. Or do you know, it almost feels like maybe manipulation. I don't know.
Well, so John, you and I spoke about this. I had a question for you. Like, you had Dr. Varley actually call you to show up at meetings at some point, right? About COVID or masks.
So what they've done, what I think they've done is they create a visible majority and say, well, if these 10 kids want this book, then that's it. There you go. So they'll reach out to people like, hey, we want your support at the next meeting. Which doesn't, you don't know what the majority is. You don't know if there's other books. You don't know if there's another 10 kids for another book that they want. So there's no data on this. So yeah, so what they do is what it looks like is somebody decided this book is good for lit lunch, maybe not acceptable enough for the curriculum. Lit lunch is good. They know the students that can reach out to is, hey, we want you to come out to the board meeting and support this. What happened in the past is COVID regulations were all messed up. Our kids got caught in they changed the regulations. They didn't grandfather people in who are already out on a COVID-related leave. So we missed school that was inappropriate for whatever reasons. So we started getting involved. We had some questions about their mask policies. And basically when we started raising our hands and say, the other schools are making determinations to remove the masks at the end of that part of the pandemic. And we said, when are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? And by the way, the districts in the area have done it. So when are you going to do it? So I got a call. Dr. Varley calls us, reached out, said, hey, we're going to make the decision on the next meeting to remove the masks. We want you there to support it. So she's like, bring your friends so that you can support it when they come out. So that's what they do. I mean, and I think that's pretty common among public meetings is they say they're going to make a decision, but there's no discussion before that. I don't know how she came to the decision that was the time to do it. And those questions remain unanswered, but that's what they do. They drum up the support to make sure there's no backlash. They've got some public support at the meeting there.
Laura, do you have any thoughts on the process or the book itself?
I mean, Dr. Worley's never called me for anything, so slightly offended.
You should
Just
be
kidding.
offended. You should be offended.
No, I
That'll be
agree
my
with
last phone call.
Shauna. The whole thing felt like creepily pre-planned and orchestrated. It's my understanding that, maybe not weeks, maybe a week or 2 weeks before the whole rigmarole with the book came up, is that there was like an online donate, like it went out to the community or it was on Facebook. They were asking people to donate this book. So it just seems so weird.
How much is the book?
I don't know. Look it up.
Let's see.
Probably $20 bucks, under $20.
Okay.
The fact that Mr. Hopkins was involved, seems weird.
It feels like this comes across as politically opportunistic again. Is basically what it comes down to?
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Oh, so a paperback version of the book is $12.99 on Amazon.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think it was about, like you said, I don't think this had anything to do with a book, this book. Fun. It sounds like they had, was it like a stipulation that the board has to approve any donations?
Yes. So that's why the board got involved, because if it's a donation, the board has to approve it. But I wanted to know like how the idea.
But this is is this an extracurricular activity though?
It's an optional, book that
It's
the
in
kids
school,
can read
yeah.
and meet at lunch to discuss. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have an issue with I don't get why books. I'm really not about banning books. I mean, I think at high school, whatever books kids want to read, they should have access to. I don't know why there has to be an approval process for that. In my opinion, I think if you buy into the idea that parents should be so one of the objections I have to sort of this, my feeling is, like, your kids are going to be exposed to this, right? Whether it's in school or not in school. And having a class with 4 other kids and a teacher talking about something like this, if it changes their mind, that's their reasoning that's causing them to change their mind, because it's something they're going to be exposed to on some level. And, on some level, you almost want it out in the open, because then if you're a parent who's concerned about how your child thinks, let's imagine you're a parent who wants certain values instilled in their kids, and I think as parents we all do. I think we all have that desire. I think there's a benefit to having this book, because I think that it allows the opportunity to discuss something, with your kid about it in a way that may not necessarily be awkward, right? If it's discussed out in the open, if it's something that they're reading, it becomes less of and they're sort of having conversations with adults about it. It makes conversations about these topics easier. It takes away what kids are hiding or might be hiding in more dubious, venues, brings it to a more sort of academic venue, and then gives parents an opportunity to discuss that. But I agree, the theater around it was silly, and I think a lot of it had to do with the Oprah custodian vote. This is a very common thing that the Board of Education does. They have a super controversial vote they know nobody wants, and then there's often a theater that's created to sort of be the thing that's flashy and talked about in the community. Same thing with Wawa, right? It's the same playbook, right? It's what was that movie, Wag the Dog or something?
Wag the Dog.
Yeah, something like that. What are your thoughts about the book itself, guys? I mean, do you guys have strong opinions about that at all?
I don't.
Go
Go ahead, Shauna.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm all in favor. I think if it gets kids to talk about it, I think if it gives kids a way to talk about it, that's great.
I think there was some defenses on it saying it wasn't that controversial, and it sounds like it's taking the burden of that women carry on childbirth and abortion. I think the book redirects it back on the male. I think that's kind of the intent of the book. So it's actually it definitely is winning in controversy. So everybody's picking up the book and reading it, but I don't think it's offensive.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I haven't read the book, so I don't know if I agree with its tenets or not. But I don't know, Laura. Do you have any concerns about the book itself?
I mean, I haven't read it, so I feel like I can't really speak to it. But my concern would be more with the teacher or the proctor who is designating where the conversation goes, when it ends, the direction it takes as the discussion goes on. That would be worrisome. I think last year we saw some questionable programs at Columbia Middle School that verged on the line of indoctrinating our kids who are, I think, at a really vulnerable age right now. So it's more of a question of what is the intent of the person who's leading this lit lunch. Do they have their own sort of goals? Are the goals coming from the district? What's digging up all the facade of it? What's laying underneath why we picked this book?
Exactly, which was why I said, I'd like to see something being truly student driven and not have it coming from the district.
Well, that's asking too much, Shauna.
Let me play devil's advocate. Can I do that?
When do you not?
No.
Let me be the devil.
That's better.
I mean, so let's imagine. So I think the CMS thing that came up last year was the whole Little Mermaid Disney shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys all went after me because I thought Ariel was a terrible character. Remember that? I mean, honestly, she's terrible. She gives up her legs she gives up her life and her family and her for some guy, some dude she just meets. I mean, I think it's a terrible message for young women.
You gave it up for true love. I mean, you want to?
How do you find true love in 5 minutes, Laura?
No, you're lucky you found what you found.
Right. Well, so as someone being incapable of the actual feeling of love, you're right. I am at a disadvantage.
Aside from the Disney version, though, in the real version, it's a lesson learned, which is what most of those fairy tales were. In the real version, she turns to Seafoam. She made a bad choice. Lesson learned.
Okay, so maybe that's how it should have ended. Maybe that's the point.
Yeah.
Maybe that's maybe that's what they talked about. But let me play devil's advocate or the devil. And let's just say you have some either radical left wing or right wing agenda kind of indoctrinating the kid. Overall, how meaningful is 4 or 5 or 6 or even 12 classes about something in comparison to our parenting? I mean, I'd imagine that we would have enough confidence in raising our kids or kind of trying to guide them to feel confident that they wouldn't necessarily be so dissuaded, and that maybe we give them room to it. I mean, we were all a little crazy in our 20s, weren't we? Go ahead, John.
So it's an interesting point somebody brought up recently. In that, I feel like where we are in the world right now, at least in the Western civilization, is that we're losing the means for kids to feel like they're part of something greater than themselves. Organizations, Boy Scouts, some of the things are still there, but there's a lot of stuff gone. So when you're in adolescence, you're thriving to be part of something that's bigger than you. I think everybody's got that human aspect to them. I think when the message becomes political, it becomes dangerous, because you've got something like the left who's got everything: save people, save immigrants, save minorities, save this, save that. So it's really attractive to be like, oh, I could be a part of this and help. It's not sexy being a Republican or a conservative when you're 17 years old, because it's duty, responsibility, integrity, and just, walk the straight and narrow and take time. There's nothing attractive about that political scope whatsoever. So what happens? That's why college becomes liberal. And then you know what? Those universities are there to capture and deliver the message. So what was it Churchill said, that you're young and Democrat, young and with a heart, you're a Democrat, and older and responsible. I can't remember the quote, but that's a normal cycle of work. But if you're going to constantly not give people that bigger picture as to what's happening, you're just driving them into one source, and you're kind of just going down on the political message. I don't know. It's just I thought there was a risk to it.
Laura, Shauna?
No, I mean, I agree.
I
agree with everything John Leo says in life and here.
Stop.
But so I mean, we kind of talk about, so these conversations always come up with sort of the radical left, and so John, I thought you wrote a really good article, and I think that the one of the dangers that came up, one of the things that you talked about came up, like in the conversations online, it started bending towards the political, but I thought it was a substantive article, and there's a lot of it that I could actually agree with. I do think we have an identity crisis in the country. I think part of it is we don't have a common and shared culture like other countries. I also think, sort of like, for better or for worse, we don't have religious institutions are just kind of falling by the wayside. That was sort of another marker for identity. And those are all points that the right will bring up. But let's talk about why we don't have a shared culture, perhaps, and why religion is on the decline. And a lot of that has to do with, I'm gonna play again the devil. A lot of right-wing ideologies. Religion in a lot of ways, wasn't necessarily. I'm not talking about like in the past, but religious institutions got away in the recent past with a lot of horrible shit. Took political positions that, maybe their people weren't necessarily in agreement with. The whole issue on sex education, we saw millions of people die from AIDS and HIV over a moral issue around condoms, and I remember working for religious institutions at the time, and we would give condoms out on the sly because we were worried that we would get fired, but at the same point we felt like we had an ethical obligation. So the right has a lot of shared responsibility in this, in terms of, So I agree. I think the left has gone off the cliff in terms of how it communicates. It's turning people off. There's a backlash, and I think they're divorced from data and they're speaking from ideology. But I think the same is true. I think the same has been true about the right in the past.
Well,
I mean, that's just my feeling.
I think, yeah, the way the country was built kind of opened us up into this. It was going to happen. I think a lot of people think about the pro-Americana that I think is kind of sunsetting. The 80s anti-Russia, pro-Americana, the Rocky movies. I think it's just, we're in that time where that's going to sunset, and people are going to start thinking about more of the global piece to it. So I think conservatives have to understand that that's going to change a little bit. But when you say that the left has overstepped its bounds, and we're talking about the extreme left, not classic liberals who we can.
I mean, I don't know. I think what's visible are the political extremes on both sides of the spectrum. Yes. I mean, I don't know. I don't have I feel like I want to believe that America is in the middle somewhere, that there's, but I don't know.
It's hard to hear it because we're so fascinated with the extremes. That's what gets put on TV, because it's much more interesting. And honest, it's hard to detract from. It's hard to pull yourself out of it and talk to somebody normalized when all you've been hearing is like, the left is coming to get you. The left is coming. They're coming to take your kids. They're coming to do this to them. And you got to say, well, wait a minute. Where's the reality? And you really have to dig for it. It's actually quite difficult, it seems. So one of the things that I remember hearing when it comes to the kindness campaign, treating everybody equally, I have a tough time with with this whole debate about how we raise our kids. I teach my kids kindness to everyone equally, regardless of anything. And then when I'm told that's not enough, that becomes a problem. It's like, well, how's that not enough? What do I do? Do I treat this person better than the other one because they're in a specific group? I mean, so that's where I'm like, I see where kindness for everybody equally may have failed, because everybody teaches their kids differently. But when you're telling me that kindness equally for everybody is not enough, I have to do better than that. That's an extreme left ideology I just can't contend with.
Shauna or Laura?
Nothing.
That shit was heavy. Like, put a pin in that.
Okay. So, but I think the reality is that, I mean, again, I'm speaking from my perspective, that you do have a track record and a documented one of institutional, financial, and social warfare on groups of people in the country. I mean, all the way up through, I mean, all the way up through the 60s. And what we're talking about is intergenerational trauma that maybe, like, I get the argument that, hey, I wasn't responsible for that, or my family wasn't, I get that. But I think at some level as a society, and I guess this is just from my perspective, I think we have a responsibility to acknowledge that intergenerational trauma and the impact of that, and say, well, we have to do something about it. And then the argument to that is, well, we've already put so much money and it's not working. But really, the way we've put money and effort into it is really more the problem, right? We didn't do UBI. We didn't give out money. We didn't give, we didn't give out good educations. I mean, we gave it in the form of benefits that were sort of punitive in a lot of ways. Look at the, I'm not going to get too political on this, but
do we feel that
This isn't what I signed up for.
okay, sorry.
Same.
Do we feel that?
I mean, it just goes there, Shauna.
No,
You know what I mean? It sort of goes there. Yeah.
Do we feel that the left strive for things like this literature, DEI was SEL, and the kindness campaign? Is it because they feel like parents are failing? Conservative parents specifically are failing their kids. They're coming to school and they're racist. They speak poorly. Is that what they feel? Are we trying to fix
I don't know.
parenting?
No, I don't know. For me, a lot of this feels very forced and not organic. I think we can talk about things like being kind when the very people who are preaching kindness are the biggest assholes around. I think the far left likes to preach that this is what they stand for, but they don't actually know what the hell that means. I think they're in the trenches with DEI and SEL. And I think we go through and we're like, yep, we're doing that. But then there's no like follow through, right? So we're teaching our kids, like, be kind. Maybe we do a lesson, maybe there's an SEL, and I'm not saying we're failing at any of those, but there's no long-term trajectory of where we hope these kids are, in 5 years, 10 years. Talking to someone the other day, we have all these new initiatives, right, to be better people and have our kids be kind. I'm like John, my kids are kind, and I could die knowing they all were good people. That's enough. We still have the same problems we had when we were kids today. So where we are failing in that regard, in that we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, but we're not doing any better.
You mean like the DEI SEL basket?
Yeah, all that shit. Like, kids are still assholes. We still have bullying. Is it better? No. Is it worse? I don't know. It's still, it's not like, I don't think there's resolutions to these things, because I think the account of human nature, you can't control that.
Right. I
Right?
think the hazing that is middle school is going to be there no matter what. And I think they're trying to manage that, because it could be awful for some kids. I'm worried about my kids going to middle school, but I think if you have a particular asset, no matter what it is, a kid's going to pick on you for it. But the thing is, we're quantifying this one's worse than this one. If you fat shame or call somebody a name based on skin color, whatever, we're making a hierarchy, when to the kids are the greatest equalizer to me. To that kid, no matter what it is, it's their attribute. And if they get picked on for it, it's horrible for that kid, no matter what. So they come back home to the parents, and the parents figure out, well, how do I deal with this? Well, you want them to be strong. You want them to defend themselves, but then you also don't want them to turn into bullies either. So how do you teach that? I have no idea.
So I feel like there's a good answer to that question. So I disagree with the notion that we can't change culture. I mean, I think if you look at the history of societies, we've become
I agree with you.
more and
Yeah.
more humane as time goes on. I just think that
Mhm.
that's true. And I think that that could be true for schools as well. And I think that we can influence culture like through things like DEI and SEL. You can't do it if you don't have a clear plan. You can't do it if you don't have a clear goal. You can't do it without buy-in, because if half the people don't buy into what you want and they think they're being manipulated, you're actually going to have a major backlash against that. So while I like the intention of DEI and SEL, and I think SEL is different. I want to separate the two because those are two very different. One complements the other, but they're not essentially the same thing. But I think those are all great things that, if done well, could really benefit. I think the issue is that we don't have a clear plan. We don't have goals. But to the
measuring and collaborate. We don't measure. We don't know how to measure. We ask that question, and there's no collaboration. If people look at Basking Ridge, they have workshops. They're asking their parents. They're having massive amounts of collaboration there, and they're honestly being like, you know what? We don't know what to do. We need help. And then you can change the culture. We're not going to change the culture in Berkeley Heights because we're not having the conversation. The people who support it are the parents they're inviting to the meeting to clap for it. But it doesn't mean somebody's not coming in and saying, hey, wait a minute. And this was my point, is like, I want to be critical about this program because I want it to work properly. Not because I want to get rid of it. I want it to work. And Basking Ridge is doing that much better if you follow their tap intos.
Well, I think that's where I'm coming from.
Right.
Is that I actually believe in this stuff. I just don't think we're doing it well. And I think it's actually going to create a backlash that's going to rob us of an opportunity to do it meaningfully for a few years down the road. Like,
yeah. And I have an example of not doing it. I have a very good example for you of maybe we're not doing it in the best manner, because the Kindness Week, when, you know, you're affirming and you're supporting and the kids are supposed to wear a certain color shirt each day. And I take care of some young kids in the morning, and the whole conversation was not about supporting any of the groups. That it was about stress over they didn't have the right color of shirt. It was about, you know, it wasn't achieving the goal in any way, shape, or form.
All right, so that's I think that's a good example of something that's not thought through. But to answer the question, I also think what we're missing, and I think this speaks to your point, John. I think the other piece that's missing is, look, we have to kind of on some level teach resilience. Like, you know, and I don't mean like, you know, in a mean way. Like there are actually skill sets and protocols that we can use to help kids feel like they can be assertive, that they can stand up for themselves. And I think those, you know, and the natural objection, oh, well, you're blaming the person. Well, no, I'm just acknowledging the reality that exists. The reality that exists is I know that my kids are going to go into, or do go into, a world that isn't always kind, that isn't always nice. And yes, I want to change that context, but there also has to be some resilience that has to be developed. And I want to feel a level of confidence that they're going to be able to assert themselves and bite back, you know, when they need to, you know. And I don't know if I think that speaks to your point. And I think psychology has answers to that question, and they're not necessarily hard things to implement at a school level.
Everything I think about, I go back to aviation because we have such a good safety record. And what we created on the union side, the pilots support it, is we have a professional standards group. And if there's ever conflict between pilots or professionally, they go to the professional standards group. And what's the first question the professional standards people will ask the pilot? Are
you afraid of heights?
Yes. 100%. We will not get on a ladder. We will not get on a ladder. Did you broach the subject with the other pilot? 100%. But no. Well, why don't you try that first? Because then that's the resiliency thing you're talking about, is you have to broach it yourself. Because if you go to pro stands and try to get a mediator to pull it into, it never works. It's like, hey, you told on me? And that's what the schools are promoting, is go to the principal. They'll mediate for you. You guys get, well, no. And that's kind of the thing we're missing from the schoolyard 50 years ago, probably more, is when you had a fight, at least in our heads, it was you finished the fight and you shook hands. There was a respect. We don't want people throwing fists, but the respect, the shaking of the hands has to happen when you have a verbal disagreement, altercation. So we kind of want to teach our kids, like, hey, you got into a fight, they're not the bad guy and you're not the bad guy. You're both right. Shake hands and talk about it. Yeah, we have to get people back talking. It's the same thing that we're happening with the Board of Ed here is we're not talking anymore because we're way over here.
To your point, John, I agree with what you're saying, but I think a problem in our schools is that we always run to mediation, right? We know, my kids don't know how to have a conversation that's difficult. But I think when it comes to having difficult conversations, and I've had them as an adult, sometimes it's unkind, and I think
That's a good point.
to your point, that
Yep.
building their resiliency is that sometimes some really hurtful, unkind things need to be said to clear the air. And I think the problem with the way things are being implemented at school, and I can't really speak to it because I'm not in school, even though I look like a middle schooler, is that sometimes shit has to hit the fan for us to get some resolve.
Conflict
And
is hard.
I think that the structure of the way things are organized is prohibitive to really being able to move on, right? Because if you have to sit down with a counselor or the principal and you can't really say anything unkind, are you getting to the resolution you need, or is it just sort of,
So
Well, I
does
want to
HIB
tap into this. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Does HIB have a platform to allow the students to come together and talk about their platform if it's appropriate to talk about their conflict? It
they
doesn't.
do no, I think they come together. I
With
think
mediation.
part of the resolution for a conflict or for a founded case is that the students meet. But my
Okay.
point is that they're meeting in school and they've learned for their entire time in school that we need to, choose our words properly, and we need to be kind, and we need to, approach it from a very happy-go-lucky rainbowy place. And I think sometimes it's got to get ugly before it gets better.
So I want to kind of tap into that word kind, right? Because you're not saying unkind things. So we can say, hey, what you did here, this is what you did. This is how it made me feel, and I don't want you to do that again. And that's not unkind. That might, just because what I say makes you uncomfortable, that's not the standard of whether something is kind. If I said to you, stop being an asshole, which I say to all of you on a regular basis,
It's kindness to me.
that's not kind. But there is a way. So yes, you can always be kind, and you could always be non-provocative. It's horrible, and it's inhuman to expect that of someone. We're just not built that way. We can make that better, right? But I also think we have to look at the word kind and what that means to people. Does kind mean like I can't say what bothers me or upsets me if it makes you upset? I think that's.
I think kindness has been put in a very tiny box.
Yeah.
And they want to control it. It's almost like it's trying to be controlled, because something you think I say is unkind, Shauna could say, I didn't think that was unkind. She was being honest. So it's subjective to the point where I think they need to open that box. And I think, I'm not saying we go back.
You guys are always unkind to me.
That's because you're Satan.
Well, look, we got through this conversation. Shauna almost quit. But we kept her.
Her finger was on the button.
When I started going
It's
into my
only
history
because
lesson.
I can't stop looking at Laura and John. They look radiant today, and Laura looks like a middle schooler.
Is that what you meant when you said you didn't sign up for this?
It's the lighting.
Shauna, you're gonna get cookies.
What about me? What
I'm
don't I have
glowing.
radiant?
Tropical fruit.
You have poor lighting.
See?
What about
You
wait,
don't.
wait. How about now? Do I look radiant?
No,
Oh
turn all
my
the lights
God.
off. Turn all the
The
lights off.
sex
Angelic.
appeal is
You
just
look
too much
angelic.
to handle for our watchers.
I don't know. that was unkind. She just talked about how beautiful the two of you were.
So I'm
And I
being
totally-
honest. If your perception is that it was unkind, I'm sorry. It was not my intention to make you feel sad, but sometimes my honesty is
Oh
not
my
well
God.
received.
You need to spend a little more time in makeup before the show. That's all she meant.
I put on lip balm.
I
All right, so let's go to I think we covered the whole DEI ejaculation book
Jeez.
stuff. Did we cover all that?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's so John, you have enough.
Responsibly.
We did
We've
that
done it
responsibly.
responsibly.
Let's there's something going on with water and sewage. John, do you want to give us an update?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that.
I'm going to talk about sewage. So it was
Woo!
so the February 7th, I think it was February 7th, town council meeting. Thank you. Is on the Berkeley Heights YouTube page. You can review it, and basically they had two experts come up and say how terrible our sewage plant was. And they said there was not a major investment put into our sewage plant since 1985. So they are addressing that, and they're looking for grants and federal appropriations so it's not directly taxed to our residents. So that's being addressed. We know there were some issues over there, and that's probably pretty good to get done with that. Consequently, and this will be my transition to the drainage aspect of it. I understand the water that comes out of it, aside from all the problems it has, is a very complex thing. But the water that comes out of it that goes into the Passaic River apparently is clean enough to drink. And yeah, it's cleaner to drink coming out of that pipe than it is in the river because of how the cleaning process works.
Why would you drink water from
Wait a minute,
either?
I'm sorry. I have ADD. Am I drinking sewage water?
No,
Like, what are you saying?
Your water does not come from the
What the
Passaic
fuck?
River. Your water does not come from the Passaic River. I'm just
Okay,
saying
whatever.
it's cleaner to drink coming out of the sewage plant. I mean, think about it. That's how they do it on the space shuttle. That's how they clean water. They recycle it. That's essentially what we're doing. Same.
But that's not what I'm drinking.
No, your water comes from a reservoir.
You are.
Round Valley Reservoir. Round Valley.
Oh, by the Throwback Zoo. Yeah.
Good.
No, Clinton.
We have the Clinton one. Yeah, it's one of those reservoirs. So when we get back to water in our town, we know that we're in a very specific place with a lot of clay and drainage, and our soil has a high propensity to maintain and store water. So we know they're doing the West Side Drainage Study because the infrastructure, the grant infrastructure, is actually failing. So they're trying to put money into fixing that too. So the West Side Drainage Study is also moving forward a little bit as well. That's also been neglected terribly for a long time.
How did it get to this point where for like 20 years, that's weird. Okay.
No, I can't really blame anybody specifically, but it's just, I don't know how it's come up.
I can.
Past. Can you?
I can think of one person who's been sitting on that council.
Probably been there for a while. It's
as long as I've been alive.
Must have come up, and now they're starting to address it, and it's painful because people are pissed off. People are starting to recognize that their houses are flooding, and they want to know why. And it's not ocean level rise; it's more basements in the ground and taking trees out. All right, so if you have a lot that's an acre and it gets subdivided and you put 4 houses on it, right now the way it goes, and we're trying to change the tree ordinance and trying to fix this up, they clear the lot of trees. They clear. So you lose all that ability to take the water out of the ground. You put 4 basements in, maybe a couple pools, and you're removing volume from the ground. So whoever's downhill from that lot, that was all trees and forests and the ability to uplift the water into the atmosphere, now it goes to other houses downhill. So we already know we have that problem. We have a very unique soil. It's clay. It doesn't hold on to it very well. It takes a long time. You'll know when April comes around, you want to go out in the backyard and it's still muddy. It takes May or June to get it out.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do a couple things. We got the biggest grant Berkeley Heights ever got was to put, I forget how many trees, back in. So we're going to start getting people to take trees on their property on the right of way. They can put them somewhere on their property likely as well. Or we can find places where we can reforest. Up by GL, I think, is one spot. We could use the county property behind the high school.
John, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Who specifically will be digging the holes for said trees?
You're looking at the 4 of us right here.
I'm not doing shit, yo.
This is the money the grant got, where that money from the grant will pay for the contractor to do that. So it'll be put out, I think, to normal bidding process to have a contractor do it.
All right, so this isn't volunteers.
No, it's not volunteers.
Oh, thank God.
The Environmental Commission still has that aspect where you can get seedlings and you can put it on your own property, but these trees should have a contractor do it. Now, obviously, if you take a tree and we do allow you to put it in your backyard because we have extra trees, we may not have the contractor come in your backyard. But if it's on the right of way in the front by the street, the contractor can do it.
And
You could just put a tree in my house without me giving you permission?
Right of ways on your property, you have to ask. You'll either have to ask for it or agree to it.
Because I'll be out there with my American flag. No one puts a fucking tree on my yard without me knowing about it.
You live in the forest.
I know. God, it's fucking creepy. There's I think we have coyotes now. I think that's true.
Coyotes?
Is that right? I don't know, man. I hear weird noises at night and shit. It's it's really creepy.
Oh, is that scream?
I mean, the foxes, I know the fox is screaming, but there's a new scream that's out there that's weird. Anyway, I'm sorry. Let's go to the sewer and the drainage.
That's it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start getting more information from township updates on there, and the trail stuff will pick up while there's more stuff going on.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot. Is there anything else we had on the agenda today to talk about?
The agenda. Let me check the agenda.
The agenda.
Cute.
We kind of had an agenda today. We actually talked about what we were going to talk about a lot more than we normally do. No,
Favorite
No, it was
article?
good. Today was organic.
I thought
think
today was a good conversation.
You keep bringing up these articles from last year. Is there something you want to talk about? Just say it.
No,
Let's go
I
space.
really don't. I thought it would be a good episode to talk about what our favorite articles were from last year, but nobody wants to do that.
I
Hasn't
like
happened yet.
living in the moment. I don't
Stay
like.
tuned for 2023. Best articles to come. That's how we get.
How
viewership.
do we tell people what the best articles? I actually think I have a good one coming out this week. Actually, we'll see. I don't know,
I'll write on sewage.
but I'm gonna say what my favorite. Can I at least say what my favorite?
You
articles
clearly
were?
want to. I mean,
Yes.
I've asked
I
you now the
do.
second time.
No,
Just
I
go.
want to.
So frustrating.
I
Go.
want
guys
to
are
hear
like-
what his favorite article is. Sure.
Right, because it's an interesting conversation.
You may only speak about it if it is one that I wrote.
All right, so
Otherwise, just
one of my
end.
favorites. So
That's
we
not
put the
inclusive.
best. We put the top 3 articles on the newsletter, and that was just based on views. That wasn't a judgment call. That was just based on views.
Popularity contest. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, that was a popularity contest. And Virginia, actually, the article that Virginia wrote on Big Thinking Classroom is one of my favorites.
Building.
Another one,
This is the
building.
second time today I've corrected you.
Wait,
my
your
God.
favorite or the people's favorite?
People's favorite.
People's favorite.
Okay.
The other articles that I enjoyed were Laura's like all-out war with Angela Penna
Oh,
during the election. Like that's something you guys have to read. And then the other one was Shauna's article outlining the list has grown, but the sort of ethics complaints. So those are my 3 favorite: Big Thinking, Building Thinking Classroom, Shauna's article on the ethics violations, and Laura's like boxing match with Angela Penna during the election. And then
Hold on, favorite.
and then John Leo. I don't like any of John Leo's shit.
It's fine.
like-
I write to displease you. All right, favorite title though? How many administrators can you fit on a fiscal cliff? Best
Yeah.
title.
That was my favorite.
that was the
But
best.
what about the sexualistically title? Although that was just
I
that
wrote
was a
that
good
one
title.
down yesterday because that's. I mean, we had like a love child. Like we made a new word. You made a new word.
Yeah.
There's shirts.
Yeah, we did.
Somebody
We
has
came
a
up with
shirt.
word.
Todd has a
We did
shirt.
a shirt. Yeah.
Todd has a shirt. All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about? Are we done?
What can people expect in the coming months?
Oh, budget meeting on Monday, guys. Make that budget meeting, please.
Board of
No,
Ed.
not this Monday. Next
The
Monday,
13th,
the
the 13th.
13th.
Board of Ed.
Yes,
budget meeting.
please go to that. We still have not gotten the tentative budget. We don't know if we're going to get the full budget, and we
Or
haven't heard
having
anything about
public-
this public budget meeting that Angela Penna promised. All right,
Good luck.
I'm going to stop recording. Should I stop recording? I think I should stop.
All right,
Stop. We're
goodbye.
done.
Bye.
Farewell.
Wait, Shona, where are you going?
Wait,
He's
I thought we
been
were-
done.
I thought we were done. We're not done.
But I don't think we're. Hold on. Why is this shit not stopping?
Are we having a host discussion?
We are.
Well, we're recording.
having
I'm
a
just going to end the call.
executive
I'm going to end the
session.
call. I'm going to end the call.
Encore.
Bye.
Here we go.
It's an encore.
All right. The public
Can
has
I
to
make a
leave now.
motion? Can I make a motion
Let's-
to move to executive session?
We're
Second.
moving to executive session.
Yes.
Bye.
I'm gonna have to abstain.
Wait, we're
And
still
the-
recording.
We are.
I know. I'm just going to close this out. I'm closing this out. Everyone close their tab.
Are we coming
Okay.
back on?
What's going on? Should we just stay on
It's
without
still
John?
recording without him.
I think this is getting a lot of viewership. All right, let's talk about getting rid of John Paul.
Okay.
Let's say 3 things we don't like about him.
His glasses. Is he wearing glasses today?
He was wearing glasses today.
His glasses.
That might be why he didn't look radiant.
Could
Maybe
be.
we should tell him that.
Glasses.
He's wearing lip balm though. I'll give him that.
He did.
Well, we might be. Well, yeah, we're gonna buy him some lip balm. Let's do that. All right,
Um,
what else don't we like? He's got to change his bin of sex toys up there. What else?
He needs to organize that shelf. I'm going to go
He
over
should.
there and do it.
That's
Yeah.
IKEA. That's IKEA furniture. I just want you to know.
That's fine. I have
Definitely.
nothing against IKEA or Target or Walmart. It just needs to be organized.
Take a hammer to it. What else?
We need to really not judge on furniture, please.
Yeah, I don't have good stuff. Nobody hand me down anything.
Same. All right, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, for real.
The
right.
anti-John Paul section is doing quite well these days, I think.
Into the highest views ever.
All
All
right,
right, I'm logging out.
Wrap it
Bye,
up.
guys.
Later.
Bye.